Welcome to the Ask April Porter podcast, where franchisee performance meets real-world business strategy. I'm April Porter, attorney, former judge and multi-unit franchisee, and the authority on franchisee performance. Each week, I share actionable insights, proven strategies, and inspiring conversations with top entrepreneurs and franchise leaders, all to help you grow your franchise or small business to achieve what I call swag. Sanity, wealth, and gratitude. Success without sacrifice. To claim your swag, apply these hard-earned lessons from seasoned entrepreneurs. We're going to do that now. Let's dive in. This week, we've brought in a heavy hitter with a wealth of experience. I want to introduce you to Glenn Poulos, who has previously built and exited 2 successful companies, including Gap Wireless, which grew to more than $80 million in sales before his 8-figure exit, as well as he is an accomplished author of the book Never Sit in the Lobby, known for blending sharp sales discipline with a human rapport-driven approach to leadership. Welcome, Glenn. We're excited to have you here on the show.
Thanks, April. Great to be here.
So we cater to, franchisees and small business owners who are hearing 8-figure exit and thinking, my goodness, how could I get that big? How does that even work? But I will tell you, so many people that we meet that I work with, when I first talk to them, they aren't even thinking exit, right? They're just thinking about getting to the next day, to the next little milestone. I'd love to hear from you. How did you start? You certainly didn't start, at 7 figures to jump to an 8-figure exit.
Yeah, well, everything starts with kind of with an idea, right? And I always share, if you're trying to get into business, if you're an entrepreneur listening to the show and doing the 9 to 5 and you want to jump ship, there's only three things that you need, right? The first thing that you need is a minimum viable product, right? You need something to sell. It doesn't have to be perfect. Do not perfect it beforehand. Get something that's ready to go. Maybe you're buying a small business or whatever. So that's the first thing, something to sell. The second thing you need is either one of 2 things, 18 months of money in the bank to feed yourself, or a very loving and caring spouse, one or the other, to feed you for those 18 to 24 months. And of course, and then the third thing you need a customer that you don't deserve that believes in you, because oftentimes when you're starting a business, the first order comes from someone who just throws caution to the wind and trusts you, right? And with those 3 things, that's where the genesis of most companies come from, right? Everything builds from there and everything is earned from there, right? So, and that's where it started for me. So
Oh my
far.
gosh. I love that so much because as you're saying that, I do feel it. I myself I was a prosecuting attorney for 10 years and then jumped into entrepreneurship, but I had the benefit of joining a franchise, which has done all of what you just described, for its franchisees. But then upon selling my exit from my franchise business, I went into coaching and consulting. And in the past couple years, we started a new company called Secret Sauce. And it was a way to take what I had been doing with high touch, small group coaching and consulting and scale it so that we could help more franchisees and small business owners and reduce the price. Because so many times when people figure out that they finally need help, they've made enough wrong moves to deplete their capital. And anyway, what you just described in those 3 things, we wouldn't be where we are today without those 3 things. So you've perfectly captured what it all boils down to. So you did that not once, not twice, but you're working on it for the 3rd time. So you shared with me before we came on. What is different each time between each one of those journeys in starting the next phase or next company?
Yeah. So the first one was, just figuring it out as you go, right? But it was still successful, and that company also sold him for the 8 figures as well. But I had a few partners, so we had to divide up the money, right? And the second company, a company that I had started, Gap Wireless, which is my initials, G and P, right? The A is the vowel I needed to make a word. My middle name is not Albert, it's James. But nonetheless, because I was naming it after myself, I wanted to solve some of the problems in my last company, and it was mainly around customer service. And I realized we had grown to be a company that wasn't a pleasure to do business with. And I really didn't like it. And I couldn't course correct. The company was fairly big and there were too many people, and I just couldn't, the ship's big and it takes a long time to turn, right? And so from the ground up in Gap Wireless, I really built it on customer service. And again, I had external investors and I had a partner, right? And so there were a lot of moving parts. What's different the third time is instead of doing it from scratch, I realized that there's millions of businesses out there, and this is really in a way I always think of things are like cheat codes, right? One of them is buying a business from an elderly person that's looking to retire and doesn't have a family member that wants to take over the company or buy it, or no one, is not otherwise easily saleable, right? And there's millions of companies like that in North America.
Mhm.
And, people are in their 70s, their kids are doing something different. They don't have a logical person, that the business can buy the business, or the employees don't have the financial wherewithal to do it, or the desire, And so the third time I decided, one, I was going to do it by myself, no partners. And two, I was going to buy an existing business that was in a similar kind of business that I was used to running, but in a different area, different space in the market. Right. So I was in telecom and now I'm in utility power space. Right. So selling to big utilities in the US. And I changed territories, I changed countries, I changed just about everything. Right. But instead of starting from scratch the third time, I bought a business this time, and it's a and it's in a way it's kind of like buying a franchise, right? You're buying a system that's in place with a bookkeeping and methods, and then the purchasing methods and vendors and a recipe, right? And really can speed things up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so those are some of the differences that nuances of going from the business one to business two to business three.
You mentioned buying into the systems, and something that I have run into, I recognize it when I look backwards through my journey, but I also see it in the small business owners and franchisees that I work with, which is when people typically make that leap from being an employee for someone else into owning their own business. I kind of think of it like a toddler who is just starting to exert some independence. And, where it's 20 degrees outside and they want to wear rain galoshes and a sundress and, something like that to school. And they will not take no for an answer because they want to do it that way. And I feel like I see that all the time when you're first making that leap. It's like, oh, I want to do it myself. I don't mind the grind. I know you're telling me, trial and error that I could skip it if I would buy a system, but it's like there's this like piece that is so important to exert your independence. And then when you get to your second, your third company, you're like, no, show me the shortcut, right? What's the fastest way to revenue production?
Yeah.
Looking back, can you recognize some of those emotional factors that maybe were present in the early days that you grew out of through your journey?
Yeah, the biggest lesson that I learned, and I didn't, I learned it from going to seminars and practice and learning, training systems and things along the way and picking up the pieces that you use to build your experience with, right? And in the beginning, for me, it was always a people first focus. And what I don't mean is not that I'm not putting people first, because I am, and I think if you check me out, you'll realize that it's true, kind of a thing. But what I mean is what's really important is the structure of your business first, and then the people. Because what ends up happening is it's like you're sitting in a room and there's like six people, right? And I used to joke a while back, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, okay, so you're a VP and you're a VP, and well, you're 10 years older, you get to be an EVP, you're the executive vice president because you're the oldest, right? Oh, Sally's coming in. Sally, you're a VP too, right?
Uh,
Just because they just happen to be in the room at the right time. Do we need all those VPs? Do any of these people know anything, what department they're working in? Versus the structure of your business first, people second, right? So getting the right person into the right seat. Um, and that is really one of the keys to getting it right, is coming into a new business, or an existing business that you're buying or whatever, and looking at it and saying, is what is the structure I need to be successful? I need the sales team, I need the operations team, I need the finance. Who can I, and then you say, who can I put into those seats? I don't have someone, then you have to hire someone, right? In the beginning, you might be sitting in all seats, but I can assure you, you're probably doing a poor job spreading yourself across all those roles, right? And so that's something that I learned. And I try to remind myself every day and practice that, structure first, people second, and getting the right person in the right seat.
You're speaking my love language there, Glenn, because we that's one of the early things that we teach inside of our program is stepping back, looking at the structure of your company. It allows you to be more objective because typically those early hires are friends, family, or they're people that you found, quote, off the street, but they've become friends and family because they've helped you grow. And it's hard sometimes to see that maybe they aren't in the right seat or maybe the company has outgrown them. And so it's so important to be able to shift into a more objective outlook in those regards and then place the people where they belong. So let's talk a little bit about, I mean, obviously your wealth of knowledge and your record speaks to that, but also speaking with you, it's very clear. But let's talk for a moment about your book, Never Sit in the Lobby. Love the name. Give us a quick rundown as to how that ties into the overall premise of the book.
So it's built around the 57 tips to build a career and a business in sales, right? And so it's, you know, as a salesperson, what do you do next? How do you do it? And but also, operating in and running a business, it's not just about sales, but it does appeal very much to the salesperson, and it's 57 tips, right? And so you can open it up to any tip you want. You don't have to read the book cover to cover at any point. It's not a system like the challenger sales model where, first you got to go in and map out the customer to be this. It's just rules to practice, and they're everyday rules. And it's like, oh, well, that's obvious. I'm like, well, do you do it? And they're like, no. And I go, well, then how obvious is it? Right. And so one of the rules is never sit in the lobby, right? And so people are like, what difference does it make if I sit in the lobby? And I'm like, well, I'm only 5'6". And so if I'm sitting down, I'm on my phone arguing with the wife about who's picking up the kids and the groceries and the milk and whatever, and a 6'5" senior buyer walks out, this person's got a 4-foot advantage on me, and I'm talking to the wife. I gotta either hang up on the wife or it's not a good look, right? So when I go into a customer, I show up exactly on time. I ask for them and then I wait right there for them, and I don't get distracted on my phone. I don't start looking at things, sitting down, calling other customers. And then the next rule is always have something in your hand and something in your mind. And so that's the next thing. The person walks out. Great to meet you. Thanks for popping down. You would ask me for that brochure. I was in the area. I'm dropping it off. Here it is. That's something in my hand. Something in my mind is here, check out this first page. Just want to get your idea of what you think of this. Is that the kind of size, color, shape, feel, whatever? Depends on what you sell, right? And then the third rule that follows in that little litany of rules is always ask them for a mini tour, right? This is key. And it's like if you're selling things, software, hardware, it doesn't matter, services, you need to get to them and you need to get behind the Wizard of Oz, the curtain, because you need to see where they're going to use your product. Because oftentimes what you realize is that you think you're having a conversation with them as a customer or potential customer, but really they're just using you to keep the real vendor honest, right? They've got 9 of your competitors installed in the back behind the curtain. You don't know it because you've never been back there, and you're just giving them pricing that they're taking to beat up their supplier to get a better price, right? And so once you get behind that door, that's when you can start to see, hey, what coffee mugs are they holding? What mouse pads have they been given? What Stanley water mug, did they get, at Christmas this year, the giveaways, right? And you can see in situation where the stuff is going to be used. And so there's 54 other tips that go with those, and just help you to figure out what the next right thing is to do.
Well, I consider myself a pretty good salesperson. But I will say, I would disagree. I don't know if the person told you it was obvious about going back and looking at their logos on the Stanley mugs, but I think that is such a brilliant strategic tip. I love it's almost like a little hidden gem that you've just unveiled there, and we appreciate
Right.
that. So now that you're working on this new company, you're growing it. Obviously, buying an existing company, you get to go in at the top instead of the bottom. You get to maybe do a little kind of troubleshooting, fix it up, optimizing viewpoint instead of the just purely build and grow viewpoint. What are you enjoying most about this stage of your business journey?
Well, that's that's what I enjoyed the most about it is this stage of the business journey. Because when the other company in Canada, Gap, had gone to 80 million, and especially after then we sold and I was working for private equity, that was not my favorite thing to do. There's just too many meetings and too many people, and I like actually running around from, like, doing getting the we put in a new ERP system here, software that runs everything from quoting to CRM and the accounting, everything. I love putting in a system that adapts and formulates to our business model. And I really love weighing in on the marketing. And I'm not actually, in Photoshop and making the brochures and whatever, but I'm guiding the hand that's driving that software and the color schemes and stuff like that. When I sold my company, right, the most offensive thing that happened to me in the very beginning was they changed the color palette of my company, right? Like, and I never thought, I was trying to train my ego before I sold it that I would need to keep it in check. But you really can never sort of measure the assaults on your ego and where they'll come from and how to balance them, right? It's like, no, red and black is good. That's what it should be. Blue and purple and whatever, that's not right. And and it wasn't so much that they were changing it or that it was blue and not black or whatever, but it was just that it wasn't me and they didn't really care what I thought, right? They were
Yeah.
changing the font, they were changing the color, right? But I love working on all the little aspects of the business and, trying to tune each little piece of it up a bit to try to get more out of it. And that's how you grow the value of it, right? You buy it at X amount of value and you do these steps and it just becomes worth more for you having laid hands on it, right? And then in time, if you show up to work every day, you look back and you've ended up growing it and down the road, if you're lucky, you can sell it to the next person when you're looking to retire, right? And that's sort of the model and the journey. But I love it when it's kind of small and because I can weigh in on so much of it, right? And I don't have all those VPs in the room, that I have to cater to. So
So this newest company, how big is it? How many people are in your
So when I
organization?
bought it, it was 6 people, and now we're 13 people. So it's kinda doubled in size, doubled the number of suppliers we had, doubled the number of people that we have, and so right now it's like 13 now, I think is the head count, and and I get up every day, I come to work, I love it, and, it's a lot of fun, and the economy in the market is tough right now. It's not like a shooting fish in a barrel or anything like that. The year we hit 80 million was in 2022 and it was the economy was pumping, right? And 23, 24, 25, they've all been challenging years. And, we've all had to question our skills as the market has, it's been a challenge for a lot of people and myself included. But I've realized, because I bought it 2 years ago, I came full time a year ago. When I look back, it's the showing up every day and the little small steps that you do every day that make the difference.
Yeah, and I think too. I mean, I'm sure you subscribe to this too, just having spoken with you, but you've always got to be improving, right? The question has to be, what more do I need to learn? What more how can I there's always more to learn, essentially. So, along the way, one thing that I'm always talking to small business owners, particularly franchisees, because franchisees buy into a system where they have a franchisor. And so
Mhm.
many times that can trick them into believing, like, oh, well, I have a franchisor, so I don't need any other help. I don't need any other guidance. I don't need any other knowledge. And then we see the middle of the system kind of get stuck. And it's because they're just waiting for the franchisor to give them the next thing instead of
Right.
going out and finding, and being curious enough to figure out how do they level up themselves. So along your journey, did you invest in coaches or conferences, like where was it that you went to continue up leveling your business knowledge and your sophistication as a business owner?
Yeah, so I've had various kinds of coaches along the way. I've had some fitness coaches along the way that have had some modicum of success here and there, but not flawless, but also business coaches. And there's a for me at least, my belief is that a lot of it is kind of like, you know, pushing you or convincing you that your decisions that you are wanting to make are kind of correct, right? And like, okay, so if this is the way to go, why haven't you done anything? Or what's the next step? And next week, let's look back on, this kind of accountability, right? Is accountability coaching is, but also where I've really got the benefit was in the mentoring style, where I got a lot from these mentorship groups like the EO Entrepreneurial Organization, Young Entrepreneurs, and um, PEO, and and hopefully one day Tiger 21, which is the big Kahuna, right? And
Yeah,
and they say if you have to ask how much it is to the yearly fee at Tiger 21, you're not ready
you're not
for it
ready.
yet. But sitting in a room with like, your cohort, your 8 to 12, and it's not always entrepreneurs because I mean, most of these places put you with a like ranked group of people. Like in the PEO that I was in, there was one for public company executives, C-levels in public companies. And then there was, government type company mentorship teams. And I was in the young entrepreneur, like smaller business entrepreneur, tracked, right? And learning how they got some funding and how they dealt with some tax things and who they were doing for their cross border, you know, whatever, and this and that, and all sorts of little tricks and cheat codes along the way on how they did it, right, is super, super powerful. So I recommend mentoring, I recommend coaching. It and I don't, you have to be coachable when you want to get coached. So, like there's great times to be getting coached, and you know, sometimes you're not in a coachable state. At least that's my personal. Maybe coaches would argue with me on that, but nonetheless, throughout the years, especially in the last like 10 years, I mean, I've either been in some kind of a mentoring team or with a one-on-one, and mainly for me, accountability kind of coaching. So,
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. I do think there's so much power in being in a room of peers, but they have to be peers that are at your level and above or have strengths where you have weaknesses so that it makes it worth the time, because time is the most precious resource. And that's where I see a lot of people misusing their time is they're in rooms where they end up coaching everybody else in the room. And it's
yeah,
like, is that really where you need to be to go up to the next level?
no, right,
But yeah, and also when you spoke about, maybe you're not always in the coaching mood, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I owned kickboxing gyms. That was the franchise I was involved in. And
right,
so during the pandemic, of course, we had mandated shutdowns, which was the most stressful time ever because you had no idea how everything was going to shake out and if you'd have any revenue when it was all said and done. And once we reopened, I, had a buyer. I had already had my businesses listed as part of my exit plan, so I had a buyer and, sold, and we were closed within the next 90 days, and I was out of
wow,
the business altogether, and I
yeah,
had a coach at the time, and, he was like, "Okay, let's see what's next," and I'm like, "What's next is I don't wanna talk to you. I don't wanna talk to anybody about business.
right, yeah.
Like, I just need a
I need to
break.
chill.
I need to, like PTSD, business ownership PTSD right now."
Well, you made me smirk when you said, a kickboxing gym, right? Because and I mean, and I love sharing things about me that make, that make me seem more human as well, but one of them is the funniest ones is my kickboxing story,
Oh,
and
I wanna hear
so
it.
Lord, yeah, and, so anyways, yeah, I'm 63 now. This was a few years back, like maybe I was 59 or 60. I don't remember. It was a few years ago, not that long ago, but and I decided I'm taking Muay Thai, right? It's time for me to do the kickboxing. That's going to be my coaching, fitness accountability of the moment, right? And so I've done all sorts of other ones. So found a guy, and this was when I lived in Toronto, and he was, you know, more of a private kind of small gym and whatever. And the guy was quite capable. But anyway, so he gets me, he starts doing it, and as you well know, it's kind of like one, two, three, four. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and there's like 13 or 14 moves or whatever, right? I'm sure you're well aware of it. But so anyways, I'm a couple lessons in and he's like, Glenn, he says, I think we're going to shift to just boxing. And I got kicked out of Muay Thai and I like, no kicking allowed. Dude, you're too spastic, right? Like, maybe I can get your hands to move in the proper order at the right time, but 4 limbs all in the same lesson, it's not happening, buddy. You're fired. And I got fired from my own thing by the coach because I sucked at it too bad. And the thing is, I'm just not that. I'm kind of like one of those, uncoordinated spastic types, right? When it comes to like, sports and so people are like, how do you get kicked out of kickboxing? And I'm like, I don't know, but I achieved it. Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean,
anyways,
maybe you were beating up on him more than he anticipated
no.
as a newbie.
Yeah. It was more I was missing the target and couldn't count, right? And so
It is
anyways,
confusing. So,
yeah.
well, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you today, Glenn. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and your expertise with us.
Thank
If
you.
people wanted to learn more from you, where would they go to do so?
Best way is just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm there every day, and I'm very approachable and accessible there. And and I post almost every day and talk to people all the time. So that's the best way. I have a website, but it's easier just to connect with me on LinkedIn. So
Okay, great.
yeah,
Well, thanks so much, and we hope to talk
thank you.
to you again at some point.
Awesome. Thanks, April.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ask April Porter podcast. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow franchisees and small business owners. To access the resources I mentioned during this episode, check out our show notes.